All of us are pretty aware these days at a very early age that his arrival is celebrated on the 25th of December. So here's the question, why do we start ramping up to that like for 4 weeks ahead of time? And no, it's not a marketing ploy. It's much deeper and more important than that. It's all about preparation. Preparation maybe is not as highly rated these days as it once was. But preparation is significant when someone important is coming to visit. I mean, when dignitaries come to our city, there is a ton of preparation that goes on, right? We want to make sure they get from the airport to where they're going to, and we want to make sure that they are looked after in a safe fashion. We want to make sure that they enjoy all the sights and that they are entertained appropriately. And when we host special guests, important people in our home, we do the same kind of preparation. We at least at our house, we clean places that we never clean any other time. And we book time off work ahead so we'll be able to visit with them or take them and show them places. Or in the case of Colin, we figure out massive hikes that they should go on and wear them out. We make reservations at maybe pricey restaurants to take them out to, or you dig out your winning recipes and you prepare those ahead of time or in a timely fashion. Preparation is integral to welcoming important guests. And is anyone more important than God himself? Of course not. God even sets the precedent for such preparation. Did you know that? Way back in the Old Testament, remember, when God tells Moses that he would like to speak to the Israelites at Mount Sinai. This is just shortly after he delivers them from the Egyptians. It says, the Lord told Moses, I want you to go down, because Moses is up on the mountain speaking with God. God says, I want you to go down and prepare the people for my arrival. The first indication of Advent. Consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes. There's something about having freshly washed clothes that indicates our preparation and anticipation for the coming of God. Be sure, God says, they're ready on the third day, for on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai as all the people watch. So preparation is vital when God's coming to your house. So every year we prepare ourselves so that we can appropriately honor and celebrate the anniversary of the physical arrival of God's Son to our world. And the purpose of this preparation is variegated. Means there are a number of reasons for that. One of them is that it builds our anticipation, and how appropriate that hope would read about hope and light the candle of hope on our first Sunday. It's about anticipation, reminding us of the many hundreds and hundreds of years of anticipation that the Israelite people held on to as they awaited the coming Messiah. It also focuses our attention on the importance of the event. Kind of helps us sift through all the distractions and the noise that surrounds us in our world. And thirdly, in the case of our culture and all the materialistic trappings that have accrued around the season, the Advent period serves to kind of orientate us to the proper meaning and the appropriate celebration of Christmas. Now, there are lots of themes that we could focus on for the Advent season, but this year, Peter suggests that we focus our attention on the nature of Jesus. The nature of Jesus. So for the next 4 weeks, we're going to turn our attention to the baby that was laid in the Bethlehem manger. As you know, I hope that you know this, we don't have any selfies of the baby snapped by either mom or dad. There was no royal journalist that was keeping track of his first 6 months. No paparazzi with telephoto lens that captured him sitting in his car seat or taking his first steps. What we do have, though, is a description of the nature of Jesus and what he was like, and it's found in Colossians chapter 1. And there are 6 verses there, verses 15 through 20, that are going to be the source for our preparation over the next 4 weeks. Now, have you ever wondered, this is just kind of a little aside, but have you ever wondered why we Christians, why we spend so much time on Christmas? I mean, besides the obvious. And there are lots of people that say, well, what about Easter? Like, shouldn't Easter get more time, higher billing? Easter's way more important than Christmas, some people say. And yeah, that may be true in some ways. The resurrection is huge, right? It changes everything. It upsets death. It gives us an incredible hope. But then there would be no Easter without Christmas, right? In fact, if Jesus, the Son of God, had not entered into this world, he could never have conquered death. If he hadn't become a human, he would never have qualified to die in our place. So therefore, we would all still be bound by our sin. So Christmas definitely ranks up there in importance. Allow me just to expand on that for a moment and list some of the reasons why Christmas is so significant. Well, we've already been talking about this anticipation factor, and that really comes into the play here. Think about how long the anticipation had been building for the arrival of the Messiah. I mean, right from the Garden of Eden, remember when God predicts that the Son of Woman would crush the head of the serpent? An early prophecy about the coming of Jesus. And then about from the time of Abraham, when God promised that Abraham's offspring was going to bless the entire world. Or from the time of David, when God promised there would rise a king from his lineage who would reign over the world forever. And by the time the Roman Empire began to crush the life right out of Palestine and its people, the hope for this liberating Messiah was pretty much all that the Israelite nation had. Anticipation makes Christmas so very important. The second reason, we've already noted that none of the rest of God's rescue effort would have materialized without the birth of Jesus. Before he could deliver the world from the clutches of Satan, he had to land here, arrive here, to take on flesh. Or as Peterson in his translation says, he had to move into our neighborhood. And that's what he did. A third reason, you have to admit, the Christmas story is an amazing story. I mean, just think about it for a minute. It's filled with all kinds of intrigue. There's a blend of both common, very common, like Joseph and Mary, very common folks, and very exotic people, like the 3 wise men. There are challenging circumstances. All the babies in that region going to be killed because of Herod's decree. And there are heavenly messengers. There are murderous villains. Perhaps most important, the whole story is packed full of wonder. And everyone loves a great story. And I don't think there is a better one anywhere. Finally, this is kind of my contention this morning. I think, personally, Christmas is even a more amazing story than the resurrection. Now, don't call me a heretic until you hear the rest of my argument. I love the story of how Jesus walks out of the tomb. I mean, really, that's amazing. Don't you wish that YouTube had been there and captured that, and we could kind of see some of all that unfolding? Think about all the hits that would have got. But Christmas is, let's look a bit at Colossians chapter 1. And I'd like for us to read this together if we could. Verses 15 and 16 is what we're going to look at this morning. So from your comfortably reclined position there, and we've got it up there, let's read together. Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. For through him, God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. He made the things we can see and the things we can't see, such as thrones, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities in the unseen world. Everything was created through him and for him. Let's just wander through that passage for a few minutes together and kind of camp on some of those thoughts. First of all, Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. And John tells us much the same thing in the opening chapter of his gospel, where he says the Word, and that term, the Word, refers to Jesus. The Word was God. And Jesus reiterates this himself when he says to the crowds, the Father and I are one. And elsewhere he says, the Father is in me, and I am in the Father. And then even more pointedly when talking to his disciples, he says, anyone who has seen me has seen who? The Father. Occasionally, you'll have a situation where perhaps in a family, the father or mother has passed away. And as the son or daughter begins to get older, all the family, all the relatives will say to them, you know what? You are a spitting image of your dad. You look just like your mother. When I look at you, I think I see your mom. Well, that's the same kind of thing between Jesus and God the Father. Jesus said, if you've seen me, well, you've seen my Father. Now, I know this is really more than we can kind of mentally process. And maybe that's why the song, Mary Did You Know, kind of captures our wonder so perfectly. So for a moment, let's just, you can close your eyes or you can watch the group here, the pentatonics. You can watch them as they sing this. And listen to the words, not just the haunting music. Listen to the words. Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. Paul goes on to say that Jesus has existed forever. Now, when Mary felt those first stirrings in her womb during her second trimester and her little one flailing his little arms, kicking his legs, Mary, just like all mothers, must have marveled, my baby is alive. Wow. Such an indescribable feeling, I'm sure. Not that I've ever experienced it. And yet, in Mary's case, this was really not new life, was it? This was the most ancient of lives, stirring in her womb. The life inside Mary had always been alive. He existed before time himself, and if you'll pardon the pun, how is this even conceivable? Jesus even makes the same claim about himself later in life. He says, I tell you the truth, before Abraham was, I am. And thirdly, Paul says, Jesus is the creator of everything. Everything on this earth, everything that dwells in the heavenly realms. Generally, when we talk about creation, if someone says to you, tell me about creation, you would tell them about the majesty of the mountains, the beauty of sunsets, the rolling oceans, the uniqueness and potential of human life, the variety and scope of animal life, the incredible amount of vegetative life, fish, birds, and then there are stars. We sang about it, right? That Jesus hung the stars, knew the names. Galaxies, the sun, the moon. We go on, but you know what? That's only what we can see and observe. What about the things we can't see? Paul talks about them here. Thrones, kingdoms, rulers, authorities in the unseen world. It sounds like something out of a fantasy movie. I think, though, if we could see it, it would make any of our fantasies pale in comparison. All of it created by Jesus. And all of it created for Jesus. Our small group was talking about this very thing this week, about how in our world there's this tendency to think that we are the center. And even as Christians, we kind of feel like that we're the center of God's attention. When in fact, we're not. Jesus is the center. It was all created for Him. That doesn't in any way lessen God's love for us. But Jesus is at the center, not us. It was all created by Him and for Him. So is it any wonder then that during His time on earth, Jesus could actually command the wind and the waves to calm down? Or that He could multiply a young boy's lunch and feed thousands of hungry people, or that he could heal the blind and the deaf and the lame, that He could even raise people from the dead. It makes sense, doesn't it, that demons would cower before Him and would go wherever He commanded them to go, because He made them all. And therefore He is supreme, the master over all creation. And still, there He lies, an infant in an animal shelter, wrapped in swaddling clothes, dependent on His young mother for nourishment and on His father for protection from those who are already intent on killing them. I love babies. Most people love babies. I think Jenna, you're not in the hallway, are you? I get her to bring the baby back, but I think not. I love babies. I always kind of have loved babies, but now as a grandfather, I kind of have a additional appreciation for infants. I've watched our 3 sons grow from babies to become men. And I realize afresh, anew, personally, all of the potential that there is in just a very small and helpless bundle. In just 20 or so years, so much comes to fruition, comes into maturity. That infant will reach their full height and strength. They'll become independent and capable. They'll know so many things. They'll be able to care for themselves. Yes, they really are at 20 able to care for themselves. They can care for others. They even can reproduce themselves and have their own children. It truly is amazing when you hold all of that potential in your arms. But just for a moment here as we conclude, let's run all that in reverse. By that I mean, Let's change that unrealized potential of a baby to extraordinary feats and power, and then let's multiply it exponentially beyond anything we can imagine. And let's just consider Jesus, the Son of God, the one who has always existed, the one who is equal with God the Father, the visible image of Him, the one who has created all things and for whom all things were created. Let's take all of that majesty and all of that preeminence and His soaring resume, and then let's shrink that all down and put it in a baby. A baby cradled in Mary's arms, nursing at her breast, being burped over Joseph's shoulder. How is that possible? How do we ever manage to wrap our minds around that incredibility? It blows your mind. This is why I say that the birth of Christ is even more incredible to imagine than the resurrection. This is why Advent is so significant. Because we must never forget what an incredible, unimaginable miracle it was for the Son of God to take on flesh, to leave His place of supremacy, to be born of a woman, to become a baby, and in doing so to reveal God's amazing mission that includes even our own rescue and salvation, our new birth.